We are here today to tell you, fine people, about the unsung heroes at Nintendo of America. Maybe you guys know the people that you know.
Maybe you're, and it's a dwindling number. Maybe you're thinking Doug Bowser, forget him. Maybe you're thinking Bill Trinan.
Forget about him.
After that, it starts to get a little iffy these days.
Yeah, it's a little cloudy, right?
We want to share with you some people who are a little bit behind the scenes, but are doing like really big and important things, and have actually done things that are like historically important.
Right.
To the company and to the video game industry.
I think not only historically important, there's a segment of people there, but also people that are sort of, they have the future of Nintendo in their hands as well. So what they're doing, what they're working on, the stuff that they're pushing will probably determine what Nintendo in the coming years will be like. And it's probably people that you guys don't know. And
sounds so dramatic.
Dun, dun, dun.
It's life or death.
Well, isn't it though? I mean, I'm just here as a spectator.
But these are all people that we worked with. These were people that we called co-workers.
Yes, and for friends.
For over a dozen years or more. So yeah, we want to share them with you today.
Yes, that's going to be very fun. Of course, everything that we do here on this here channel is made possible by our wonderful, beautiful Patreon subscribers. Please join us at patreon.com/Kit and Krysta. You guys are the only reason we can keep doing this wonderful thing.
When we say we're fan-funded, crowd-funded, whatever term you want to use, that means that's it.
It's exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
I don't have the Bank of Japan wiring me money twice a month.
We don't have like investors. That doesn't happen. You guys are the investors.
Right.
So if you want to keep hearing us share our insider stories with you, if you want to keep hearing us talk about the gaming industry from an insider's perspective, please, won't you support us?
Yes.
So we can keep this all going.
We have subscriptions that start as low as $2 a month. And we have 5 different tiers that'll get you all sorts of amazing things, including early access, exclusive content, and much more. So check it out.
Yeah. We also have a free trial happening right now for you to get a chance to try our most popular tier, which is our notification squad.
First, actually.
Okay, just kidding. First. I knew I was going to get that wrong, and I knew that you were going to correct me.
Okay.
Anyways.
It's still cool.
It's still cool. The notification squad is also very cool. Yeah, so you can try it out for yourself.
That's right.
And we have a fun little goal right now to get us hopefully to Japan in the summer. That goal is ongoing. We do actually, this is not for like, we actually do need your help to get there. Like we cannot go without your support. So I think I saw a comment that was like, you're going to go anyway. Like we literally cannot.
It's kind of expensive to go to Japan.
No, like like honestly, we do not have the funding to do it unless we have your help. So like people who think that we're just going to go anyway, like no. So help us get to Japan. It's going to be great.
One place we are going this week though.
Yes.
Is Super Nintendo World.
That's right. We spent our money doing that.
Yes.
So that's
much closer. I cannot wait.
I'm really excited. I've been trying to keep myself from watching a lot of people's videos.
Exactly.
I've been like
spoiler free.
Trying to be as spoiler free as possible. And I don't know, I feel like you're less this, but I really have it in my head now that I'm like, I don't want to be disappointed. I'm really concerned because both you and I have had so much information about Super Nintendo World even before it was conceived.
Right.
Like we were there when they shared like early comps of what this thing was going to look like, what this thing was going to be. My expectations are not managed Nintendo. Like this is like as much as they were so good at managing my expectations, like for most things, like they're not managed anymore. Like the hype is huge. So I don't want to be disappointed.
It's true. We have known about this for longer than most people.
Yeah.
So it's just been on our minds for a long time.
Right.
We have a segment later on where we're going to actually call out like what would make a perfect day for us. Because we are spending a full day from 8 a.m.
Literally 8 a.m.
Why does a theme park open at 8 a.m.? I don't know.
For you to eat spaghetti and meatballs.
before I get on an augmented reality Mario Kart ride and puke. Yeah. Wonderful.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I have some things in mind. I don't know. The full range of outcomes is on the table for me. I could love it. I could hate it. I'm not a theme. When was the last time I went to a theme park?
Like
I don't know.
You're not a theme park person. I'm a theme park person, and I have really high expectations for theme parks. Like
yeah.
I have been to pretty much all of the theme parks. I've been to both Universals here and in Orlando. I absolutely love the Harry Potter world. What they've done with that franchise in Universal is like top notch. And if they do not meet the mark for this, I will be very disappointed. Get ready, Universal. Just kidding. It's like very dramatic today. I don't know why.
We'll talk about that a little bit later on. We also have a great video that is out now on a Super Kit and Krysta 64. We went back to the arcade.
Yeah.
We did some math. We said it was like maybe like 20 years.
20 years.
For us. And so before we went to a proper arcade.
Yeah.
Not just
so
seeing
crazy.
a machine here and there.
Yeah. And it was really, really fun. We found some really cool arcades. And I guess now they're called barcades because they're bar arcade hybrids.
It took you a long time to understand that this was two words mashed together.
I know, I was like very confused by this. I was like, what is this exactly? But then I totally got it. And then I was like, oh, it's for like adults like us that want to recapture our childhood but also drink. Got it. And then I realized this was a fantastic idea. But we found some really good ones in San Francisco.
We did.
I was so surprised at just like the variety of machines they had there.
It wasn't just old stuff. Like they did have, I mean, there's not a ton of, but they had like Killer Queen.
Yeah,
that was cool to see.
And we were on the hunt to find some of our childhood favorite arcade machines and see if we can like recapture the magic. So you have to watch our vlog to see if that happened. But it was so much fun.
Also some hot takes about pinball are shared in that video.
Hot takes.
Yeah.
Yes, very hot. The hottest of the takes.
Yeah. Some other stuff we've been doing. We have a video up of us playing the first hour of the Minish Cap.
Not only the first hour,
we streamed that.
But playing it for the first time.
Yes.
Like both of us have never played Minish Cap before. We streamed that last week, and I think we both came away super impressed by it and really excited to keep going with it. If you guys want to see more of a playthrough of that game, I think we'd be more than happy to do that because it was so fun.
We had a great setup where I was playing and you were on GameFAQs.com. We had that page open with the Aussie art of the logo and everything.
Oh yeah,
just like it was 2005 exactly.
Just the way it was meant to be played. Exactly. No, actually, it did work well because we were able to get through that first dungeon with minimal frustration.
It's a little bit of frustration.
Minimal. You gotta pull that mushroom until you're red in the face.
What's going on with the mushrooms in this game?
You gotta tug at that mushroom.
Treehouse was really...
They're really hamming it up.
On one with this one.
There were some jokes in there
we can get away with a lot now.
We have PG-13 today. Okay. I'm here for it. Yeah, I had a great fun though playing that, and it's so cute. Such a cute.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. I'd always heard that was a great game. I just missed it because we learned that game came out after the DS had come out.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was like,
moved on
I'd mentally moved on and moved away from the GBA.
Right.
Glad to be back.
Exactly. I think that's exactly. The timing wasn't quite right.
Something else we're doing this week, when, I don't know, we're going to try and squeeze it in.
Yeah, it's a busy week.
People are stressing out about the impending closure of the 3DS and Wii U eShops.
It's over.
A few episodes back, we did in a Q&A some games that people should check out. I don't think everybody caught that, or people are still asking us.
It was buried in like a longer podcast.
So we're going to do 2 standalone videos going through. We have 10 3DS games and 5 Wii U games. There's fewer. Honestly, it was kind of a struggle to get to 5
gems
for the Wii U.
Little,
but these are games that we stand by, we love, that you should absolutely, at a minimum, check out.
Yeah, check out before it all goes away forever. And then, just get it, just in case, So it's over.
I mean, it seems like people are buying a lot of stuff.
It's over.
It's like, whoa. This is panic buying. This is the new panic buying,
this
okay?
Is the most
it's no longer toilet paper.
Episode that we've ever had. It's just everything is dire straits, guys.
It's no longer toilet paper. It's affordable space adventure. That's the one game you should get. Panic buy affordable space adventure.
It's like the canned goods on that Costco shelf just gone because you bought like 47,000 copies.
I'm just stressed buying out the eShop right now. One of everything.
Instead of cans of beans, you got like 14 copies of affordable space adventures.
Right.
On like 14 Wii U's.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. That's cool. I'm okay with that.
And then finally, if this is coming out on a Thursday, this is also Thursday. There's a lot happening on this Thursday.
Thursday is a busy day.
But there's a new Mario movie trailer.
The final.
We will be reacting to that. Yes, the final.
Again.
Is it really the final? I don't know.
It's all ending, guys.
Is it?
It's all coming to an end. All of this.
It's the end.
It's the end.
Of Mario trailers.
It's the end, guys. This is the title of this podcast. It is the end. But yes, we will be reacting to the final. They said the final Mario movie trailer, which would be exciting to see.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, we're like, oh, they like moved the date up a couple of days.
I will not be wearing an ill-fitting Bowser costume like one Mr. Jack Black.
I would like to not have to censor.
We like to minimize the censorship of body parts on this channel.
Get spicy, guys. You just wear like a. This
is network TV. Isn't there somebody in the back that's like, hey, put this on?
So wholesome. He needed a larger size, is what it is.
Again, who had to write that email back to Japan?
His one-up mushroom was out for the world to see.
I would like to inform you that certain parts of Jack Black were visible.
That Jack Black's one-up mushroom could be visible and had to be censored on the Kelly Clarkson show. Hot! Excellent! Exclamation mark. Urgent.
He didn't.
There's some urgency.
He didn't seem to mind. He was loving it.
Gary loves
he was loving life. Like, this is me.
Freewheeling. Freewheeling.
I thought you were going to say something else. You didn't. Let's move on.
Oh. This
episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Wow.
BetterHelp. Thank you.
Learning about yourself is a lifelong process. There are things that I have learned about myself recently that, I'll be honest, I didn't know 10 years ago. I didn't know 20 years ago. I just didn't know, but now I do.
Exactly. It's like funny to think about this in a deep way, but it's so true that we are different people throughout our life.
Right.
You don't just stay the same. There's going to be things about you that can happen to you that will fundamentally change who you are. And that could be a very difficult thing to grapple with. You know, there's experiences in your life that can make that challenging.
Yes, I am an introvert. I'm a lifelong introvert. I have really come to understand that about myself, and I've also learned ways. Sometimes it's not the best thing to be an introvert in certain situations. I've learned how to manage that and get around that, and that is exactly the sort of thing that a BetterHelp therapist would love to talk to you about.
Exactly, and there's lots of other things you can talk to your BetterHelp therapist about. You fill out a very easy and informative questionnaire, and you get matched with a licensed therapist. You can talk to your therapist in a variety of different ways, whatever is comfortable for you, phone, video chat, text, and you can get started with therapy really easily to help you manage through all the changes in your life.
Yes, very flexible, very convenient, very wonderful. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/KitandKrysta today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/KitandKrysta.
We will put the link right here and also in the description below, so please check it out.
Gotta hit those P's.
P!
Better what?
BetterHelp.
Yeah.
All
right, let's get into we have 5 unsung heroes of Nintendo that we're talking today. And we're actually
story time
we're putting this in our story because I think we've got some stories about all these people.
Yeah, good stories.
And good examples about just some of the really amazing stuff and why you should, why these people should be on your mind.
Yeah, and why they matter, and even if you're not seeing them or hearing from them all the time.
Right, right.
First on the list, one of my favorite people of all time.
Really?
I love her.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She's like someone that I really looked up to, I think.
She is a great person for people to aspire to become.
She had just an amazing career path. But the person is Reiko Ninomiya. Mm-hmm. And she is the Senior Director of Localization.
Right.
But she didn't start there. She started she's been at the company for a really long time, and she really worked her way up through her career trajectory to get to what she is now.
Where did she start?
She started in localization, but not.
Oh, obviously not at that role. Right.
Yeah.
Nobody was born. I'm out of the womb. I'm the senior director of localization.
No, yeah, she started in localization, but she worked her way up, and now she leads that whole group.
Right. I think people think oh, Nintendo's localization. It's that's Nate Bildorf or that's Bill Trennan. Bill Trennan is actually a totally different
department.
Still in the treehouse, but he's not doing localization anymore and hasn't for a long time. Nate Bildorf he's a bigwig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got the big promotion.
He's Mr. Big Shot now.
Yeah.
So he is overseeing all of the Treehouse, but he's no longer writing,
he's
Mario and Luigi
like
games.
Sploosh in the Wind Waker game anymore, guys.
Right,
he's like
right.
the big boss now. So he has to, and we talked about this a lot, like as the boss, you have to no longer do the work.
Yeah.
You're overseeing it, you're like more like overhead.
Right.
But the person that is still like really deeply embedded in localization and managing all of that and responsible for all of that.
She is in charge of that team now.
Is Reiko.
Right. And one of the things that I have admired about her over the years is she has been very self-aware about all of the challenges that Nintendo localization has had over the years and has been very proactive in addressing those.
That was my favorite thing about Reiko as well. Like, she was always so, like, 10 steps ahead.
Yeah.
Like, she would get something from Japan. She would understand the implications of some of these sensitive localization issues that we would have in the Americas. Like, Fire Emblem is a great example of that. We worked with Reiko so much on understanding, like, the marriages in Fire Emblem, those really sensitive things in a game like Fire Emblem when you bring it to the Western market. And she was always such an advocate for representation and for diversity and for like communicating that, not in a shy way, back to Japan. And that's a really hard job and something that is just like a really tiring fight, I think. Because you just have to like, it's like telling somebody like a different language. Like they don't understand. It's not their fault, but they just...
It's just not something they're thinking of.
And you have to work really hard to convince them that something like this matters. And she never would give up. She would always like try to convince them. And I always admired that.
And she would also go beyond her team to get input on these topics. So like she would very frequently come to us.
Yeah.
And not like, hey, help solve this problem for me, but it's just like, what do you think about this?
Right. Exactly.
Right. And I can remember Xenoblade Chronicles X on Wii U.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, there were some outcries of like, oh, Nintendo is censoring these games. There were certain details that were taken out, or certain like mechanics that were taken out or changed, and we had real conversations about that. More recently, I remember some scenes also from Xenoblade Chronicles 3 before we left. There were some scenes in that. She was like, do you think, like, given the climate of where we are now, like, is this going to fly? Is this going to be a problem? And she was just very open to everything that we had to say. And again, it wasn't, please solve this problem for me. It was like, let's just talk this out
have a discussion.
And come to some reasonable conclusions.
Yeah, I remember Animal Crossing too, the skin tone thing on Animal Crossing worked really closely with Reiko on that. So she was like, and you know, honestly, if she wasn't personally invested in this, she didn't have to do it. You know what I mean? Like, this is not something that her job, like, depended on, really. Like, she was still doing her job. This is, like, above and beyond her job. So, to have, like, this big, chunky thing that's extra on your plate that she really cared about, like, I thought that was really great.
Yeah, it's the bigger, I mean, most people think, oh, localization, you translate
Just translate this game.
This is kind of the broader sense and definition of localization that's really important, and they've come so far.
They really have.
Obviously, there's always more that you can push it, but
there's been some improvement, significant improvement.
Yeah, this is without a doubt one of the most important departments that Nintendo of America has. This is a true extension of development, so they really need to have a strong handle on that team, and they do.
Yeah.
We should say these are all Nintendo of America people.
Yes.
We talked about that, and we thought, well, maybe if people like this, we can do another one for different regions or different parts of the company.
Yeah, but we thought we'd start here. Because
we'll start here.
These are the people that we work the most closely with and have the strongest relationships with.
Next, this person might have an asterisk next to his name because he recently retired. However, truly historic and groundbreaking contributions. His name is Lance Barr. Have you heard of him? Probably not.
Yeah.
He retired a couple years ago, and he at the time he was the director of design. We knew him as a very unassuming guy who was overseeing the design team, which is managing artwork and assets and packaging. And
the really amazing thing about Lance too, before you learn about his historical significance, is he was always like on the ground. Like, he would attend meetings where it was, like, very much like a working meeting. He approved all of the creative for Nintendo Minute. Like, he approved all our logos.
Yeah.
and even like smaller marketing materials, he would kind of be paying attention to this kind of stuff.
But the reason he's on this list is, you know, from contributions decades and decades ago. So he designed the NES and the Super NES. Remember, the Famicom has a different design from the NES. The Super Famicom has a different design. And with good reason, like, they were coming off of the Atari video game crash, and they had some very specific needs of, like, this needs to not look like a toy, this needs to look like it would fit in with an entertainment, you know, setup in somebody's house.
Yeah.
And those are, like, two of the most iconic designs that we have, and he's really responsible for creating those.
Which is crazy to think that he did that, and then he just kind of, like, also did the logo for Nintendo Minute. You know what I mean? Like, it's insane, like, how big and small his projects have ranged. Nintendo.
I honestly don't think we saw him, you know, at the height of his brilliance, obviously at the end of his career, but, like, these are, like, truly historical implications of that played, you could argue, a big part in the NES taking off and the video game industry being revitalized, of people saying, like, no, I don't just want to buy another junky Atari kind of thing. I want something that's different.
And that looks really nice. And yeah, he was responsible for all of that.
Yeah, so occasionally he would, you know, regale us with a story of, like, how this happened. And,
I know, I love those.
Like, this, it apparently sounded like he had very little time to make these designs, or, you know, some debate he had with somebody in Japan about it. It's like, wow, this is A, a totally different era, but B, just, like, hearing history as it happens.
Right.
So I think if you Google his name, I think he, over the years, did get to do a handful of interviews, not a lot, but he's a person worth Googling and reading a little about. Again, he's retired.
But he worked at the company for how many years? 30?
Oh, who knows? I mean,
more than 30 years.
Yeah, so he started in, like, the early 80s.
He got the cranky plaque, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yes, when you worked at Nintendo for a long time, you get different, like, little statues or little gizmos and gadgets.
Right. We both have the Donkey Kong.
We have the Donkey Kong.
We're not cranky yet.
We should go through those one day also.
Yeah, we should.
Those are fun.
We have those.
Next, we're going back to localization, but kind of a new up-and-coming generation of localization. And frankly, we could do... This whole list could be localization.
Yeah.
This is our last localization.
You fought to not have a list full of localization people, which I get. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, there's obviously that's hugely important, but there's more that's happening. This person is Morgan Ritchie, who I actually don't know what his title is. I think he might be localization producer or localization manager.
Yeah, I don't know his
something
title
like
either.
that.
Something like that. You guys probably seen Morgan a little bit on, like,
Treehouse Live. He's occasionally been on.
He's occasionally been on there, but I think Morgan to me is, like, almost a game developer. He has really specific talents in that area beyond, like, again, what you might think when you think of localization, just like translating and writing. He's doing that. Right. But he had some significant contributions for the Nintendo World Championships when the Mario Maker levels were announced. Him and another guy at localization, who actually is no longer at Nintendo.
He's since left,
I
think he went
to Valve.
I think he went to Bungie.
Oh, Bungie.
Yeah, one of those Seattle Seattle companies.
Yeah, but they actually, like, made all of those incredible Mario Kart levels and
Mario Maker.
I'm sorry, Mario Maker levels, and it was crazy because they were telling us, like, the development team was like, "Oh yeah, this is."
Yeah, they were very.
You guys are there.
Those were very
you guys
impressive,
are pretty much on our level.
Right.
You know, just incredible.
Yeah, so they worked on that and got the big kudos for that. There was a great moment when they were told, like, those would be in with the final game. That was really sweet to see. But you think of, like, okay, well, Nate Buldorf, he's trapped in a meeting now. He can't write this game. Like, who is? And it's him. And obviously there's, you know, dozens and dozens of other people, but he really epitomizes that Nintendo approach to localization and game writing. A lot of people think, like, oh, if you're in localization, you have to know Japanese. He doesn't know Japanese.
No.
There are people who do translation and will give you just kind of the straight translation.
And then you have to, like, jazz it up
with
the actual writing.
You punch it up, you make it make sense, you do the work from there.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what he's doing. And he really, again, is epitomizing that for the next generation. They're continuing to do amazing things in the Treehouse. Next is a name I am pretty sure nobody has ever heard.
Right.
But she has some power.
Oh, this power.
Yes. Her name is Wendy Moulet. She's the vice president of merchandise and entertainment, which I think that might be a new title for her. I had to check her.
Did you check her?
I checked her LinkedIn. Yeah, I had to double check. Stocking
going on?
I just needed to confirm some information.
You're like secretly messaging her. Wendy. Hi.
Bring me back. Wendy. All of this, new wave of Nintendo stuff beyond games has been a huge boon to the company, and she has really been like the driving force behind a lot of it.
Right.
Interestingly, she got her start in legal.
Right.
Which is unusual.
But I think also works
Makes
because
sense.
all of this stuff requires like license agreements and IP sort of, that side of legal, which can be extremely difficult to negotiate. So she has good background.
If you get somebody in legal who can really like understand other parts of the business, like that's somebody who can go all the way to the top. Like so right now, the head of marketing at Nintendo of America is Devin Pritchard, who was the head of legal until about like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, when we were leaving, when that transition was happening, she was made the head of marketing.
Unexpectedly left, and she stepped in an interim role.
And then they were like, "Well, you're too good. You got to keep
I think
you
people
around."
realize, like, oh no, this actually makes so much sense to have, because it's like, what are the most important functions that NOA has? It's like, well, legal's one of them, marketing's one of them, probably localization's the other one.
Yeah.
So now we've got somebody who really understands both.
Right.
And I don't know, I think we both know, like, whenever Doug Bowser decides to retire, she's probably going to be the next in line to get that role. But anyway, Wendy Moulet. I think you worked with her more than I did.
I did.
So why don't you?
So I worked with her a lot because I was managing the relationship between communications and strategic initiatives, which we've talked about a little bit, which was under Wendy. And again, this was like just really growing at this like exponential rate in the last few years when we were at Nintendo, because it was becoming like entertainment and merchandising was becoming this like huge pillar for Nintendo's business. But before it was just like, let's just do the games and the hardware, the software and hardware, that's it. But now it's like, obviously you got theme parks and movies and partnerships with Lego and clothing companies and these huge like other brands that you're doing these collaborations with. And so her role has really become, extremely important within the last few years. And like when you think about like who is responsible for Universal coming to Hollywood, who is responsible for liaising with the people at Illumination with the movie from a NOA perspective, who's deciding what the next partnerships are on like a Lego level or with another big brand, it's Wendy. So
yeah, we heard about some of the bigger picture things that she was trying to look into, and again, like who knows if she can actually do them, or if like the teams
she's very ambitious.
If the teams in Japan would let her do it, but it's like, oh well, that makes a lot of sense, and that would make a lot of people happy.
Yeah.
She. Keep talking about Wendy here.
Well, I'm trying to formulate.
Keep going, please.
I mean, yeah, she's awesome.
All right, fine.
It's Wendy.
Good. Yes. Our last person here. Again, we're going back to the throwbacks here. This was like employee, like I don't know, 2, 5, like I don't know.
Yeah.
For NOA
employee
overall.
2. Yeah.
Don James, who is currently the chief operating officer at Nintendo, but again, like got his start when they were like assembling arcade machines in New Jersey.
That's right, yeah.
And this is the person who, if you want to hear some crazy Nintendo stories,
origin stories
of the past, like you go to him.
There's some weird ones.
He'll just go and go and go and go.
Yeah.
But again, like it's like this is before the company even came to Seattle. Like he was a part of it. So
he in New York.
He has truly seen
it all.
Everything.
Yes.
But has had like a hand in some really important stuff. So he is actually one of the co-creators of E3.
Right.
Back when, the ESA was like, gosh, we got to come up with this show. Like, he was the person from Nintendo who was helping to shape that with other people too.
Right.
And E3 really became a huge passion point for him over the years.
Yeah. And that became like really his big focus. And he managed the huge events team that Nintendo had, the experiential marketing team as they were called, to bring like a really incredible E3 experience to life. So all of those booths that you guys love so much, like the Zelda booth and the Animal Crossing, whatever, like that was all Don, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and for those people who hadn't been doing E3, like a lot of the booth experiences there, like they're mostly functional, but mostly kind of painful to be in as well, because you're just getting assaulted from all different senses. It's crowded. It's not necessarily a super fun place to be. But our booths, like we would have people come to just to be like, it's just a good vibe.
Yeah, it was like the Disneyland experience.
I feel like I'm getting away from the hustle and bustle of the show, but still getting everything that I need to, do my job at E3. So he really had a magic formula for that. That really worked.
Yeah.
And that nobody could really replicate.
And I think the other thing about Don is this is something that is just immensely important at Nintendo is relationship building.
Yeah.
And obviously when you're at one place for plus 30 years, you're going to have some pretty deep relationships with a lot of people. And he had that kind of relationship with the design team in Japan. They trusted Don, and I think that made it possible for him to like ask for certain things and know where he can push to make certain things happen. Because as we've talked about before, the Japanese team is really, really strict about how you can use the IP, and bringing it to life, like in a sense of like a booth or a statue or something like that. That's like the hardest thing you could possibly ask to do. So
as the COO, like he has eventually come to oversee a lot at the company. So there's, the trade shows part of it.
Yeah.
There's design. I think all the testing work either was at some point or still is through him. And then there's all the operations, which over the pandemic became such a jigsaw puzzle of like,
operations stuff.
This this factory shut down, or like, we've got to send these things on these boats now, and like sometimes you would hear about this, like I don't understand a lick of how this works, but I'm glad somebody does.
Yeah,
because this seems important, right?
Yeah, exactly. Glad it wasn't us, because that sounds hard.
Right, like it's like the conversation around like, Metroid Prime Remastered sold out. Like we need to fast track some more game cards. Like he's involved in that conversation of like, how can we get these assembled and put out as quickly as possible? And what are all the options? What are the scenarios? How do we do that?
Exactly.
You worked with him on a fun project that we'll talk about in depth later.
Yes, I got to know Don really, really well on a really fun project, and I think that's one of my favorite projects that I ever worked on in Nintendo. So we got to say that for a standalone story time. But Don and I got real tight on working on that together.
Yeah, he's another person whose name you could look up. And over the years, he has done some interviews that are illuminating. I think he's also been in some books back when Nintendo was still open to contributing to different books.
Right.
So, again, he's somebody who has really been important over like... how many decades now? 5 decades? He has to be getting close to retiring.
I was going to say, like, every single time we had one of those retirement ceremonies, it's called the Celebration of Service, which we will tell you guys about another time as well. But I'm always like, he's always the MC too. He's like the longest running employee there at this point. So it's like, is he going to get up there and just announce, like, by the way, I'm also retiring?
Yeah.
Because it's been so long. He's in the same, like, class, basically, as Lance, I think. So when Lance retired, I was like, wait, is Don next?
They were really good friends. I think some people like kind of, make it to retirement and like, I made it. Now I can finally retire. I think he like wants to get, he's still having a lot of fun.
He wants it.
With his job and he loves it. So I think he wants to keep doing it for as long
good for him.
as he can.
Good for him. That's incredible.
Yeah.
To be in that place where you feel that way about your job, like that's really cool.
Right. Funnily about him, he also has embraced the Nintendo is doomed meme.
Oh yeah,
like
that's true.
anything, something happens, like, well, we're doomed.
Yeah.
So obviously that's what it is.
Every time something happens, I always look over at him like, is he gonna say it?
Say the thing.
Say it. He's also a very skilled Mario Kart player.
Really?
Mario Kart DS.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Jam.
Oh.
He used to play with the design team like every day at like 4 o'clock. They would stop to play a couple games of Mario Kart.
Okay.
And the design team was always like, Lance totally kicked my butt. Like, I'm sorry, Don totally kicked my butt. Because he was really, really good at Mario Kart. Anyways, yeah.
So those are 5 people that you, I guarantee you hadn't heard of all 5.
Wendy.
Yes, Wendy and others. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed a glimpse at who these people are and learning a bit about them and what's happening beyond Doug Bowser and Bill Trinan. The drastically dwindling number of people whose faces you see and who can say things. Nate, yeah.
Nate, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah. All right.
Yes.
Moving on to Never a Minute. We're going back to Super Nintendo World.
Brought to you by Chef Toad.
We have the Chef Toad already. We have each made a list of 3 things that would make a perfect day at Super Nintendo World. So this is like we're visualizing.
Yes, manifest people. Manifest.
It's going to happen if we talk about it.
Mercury, is it in retrograde? I don't know. We got to manifest the perfect day. And again, I'm like already psyching myself out.
You seem a little worked up.
I'm a little worked up. Why don't you go first?
All right. The first thing on my list is limiting stress. So one of the reasons I don't like going to theme parks is they seem like quite a stressful place to go.
Yeah, it's crowded.
Where it's crowded with people.
You gotta stand on the lines.
The lines seem endless. It's like, I mean, we've already been talking about this. Well, when you get through the doors at 8 a.m., we need to run to the thing so that we don't have to wait in line for 3 hours. Like, well, that doesn't sound very fun.
Yeah.
I think we've put together a good schedule. We have a good plan. We're going in the middle of the week.
No one go that day.
For a reason.
By the way.
For a reason.
If you're planning on going this week, don't go.
That was intentionally planned that way.
Oh my God.
I think we are doing everything we can to limit stress, but again, part of me just thinks theme park equals stress, so I guess we'll see.
Yeah. I know you're not a theme park person. One of the things on my list, speaking of you, is I just want you to have a good time.
Oh.
Because it's your birthday month, starting this month. And we are going to celebrate your birthday there.
Yes.
And I am a theme park person, and I've always tried to convince you.
You're also a birthday person.
I also love birthdays, not just my own, but everybody else's too. I feel like I've tried to convince you for a long time to go to theme parks. Like whether it's like, I went to that Star Wars, the new Star Wars land at Disneyland, and you're such a big Star Wars fan, I think you would really love that. So I'm like, maybe if this trip goes really well, like you will be converted.
That's possible.
Into a potential theme park person, and then you can go and enjoy some of the other ones that you may have missed. Like, because I grew up, like my mom took me to Disneyland. Like, I have such fun memories. Yeah. I try to go to a theme park, like, every year because I like it. I think it's fun. I mean, I totally get the stressful part of it and the crowds, but I think like. It would be great if we could just have a good day and you could have a good time and not puke on a Mario Kart ride and be grumpy. And I feel like you're like a child.
Not puking is not on my list, I should say.
It's on my list.
Oh, no.
That's part of you having a good time. But yeah, I just feel like this could convert you. And if it can, that would be awesome.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's possible.
All right.
My next one is to see or experience something that is genuinely surprising. So this goes back to us. We've known about this for years.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of videos before it was announced. Yeah. Like concept videos.
I do still think, though, there's a good chance of this happening because people say, like, oh, the park is jam-packed with little secrets or details or little hidden Easter eggs.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've seen everything.
Yeah.
I think I would have a good eye for that kind of thing.
Right.
And I think I will be surprised.
Right.
So I'm optimistic about this.
Yeah. For me, one thing that's really important to me now that, there is sort of a new bar that's been set for theme parks is this idea of immersion and escapism. Like, that is what I really loved. For example, I keep going back to the Star Wars world because that's the latest one that I've been to where I had this feeling where as soon as you, like, step into that land, you were no longer in California. You were no longer living your life, you know, your normal life. You were a character. You were living in that universe.
Yeah.
And that, like, entry moment is so important. And the way that they construct it, where you can't, like, it's like almost like a fence. Like you're in a dome, you know, that you can't see out anymore. And so your brain does a thing where you're like, I'm here. I'm in the Star Wars world. I believe this. They do a really good job in that world with the way that they do the line for their big ride, where even though you're waiting in line for quite a long time, it's all like a setup to get you into the mindset of like, oh my God, I am on a smuggler's ship. I have to escape the dangers, like the danger that's coming my way. Like you like believe it. You're like, oh no, I have a real sense of like, you know, danger, or like a sense of like, you know, I'm in this world. I want them to do that, but for this, for Mario, you know, because this is something that I grew up with. So I like, again, I just have like the highest expectations to feel like I am a character in the Mushroom Kingdom. Like I want to be, take me on a journey on this Mario Kart ride where I do feel like I'm like trapped in Bowser's castle and I need to escape somehow. There's a sense of danger or a sense of excitement. Like I want to be convinced, and I'm nervous that I won't be. So that's the piece that I'm like, please do it right.
Anytime I see the video of somebody going through that warp pipe, I always just turn it off or just keep scrolling.
I know,
it's like, I don't want
that's the whole
that
point.
to be
like
spoiled.
that is you're like leaving your life and going into this world,
right?
You know,
yeah.
And I hope that moment pays off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My last one might be surprising to you. Is to bond with other Nintendo fans.
Oh,
I usually keep
nice.
to myself.
Yeah.
I don't usually want to chat people up or get caught up in some conversation. But in this case, it's like, yeah, we're all here for the same reason.
Right.
And I think that's a really unique setting to have.
Yeah, totally.
And I think it could be really fun to, you know, see what other people are feeling about it. We know that we have some Patreon subscribers who are going to be there on the same day, who we are excited to meet up with for the first time. So that kind of communal, shared experience.
Another exciting thing about going to a theme park is that you know
right.
Obviously you have one thing in common, you know?
This is something I am generally not interested in 99% of my life, but in this case I am.
My last thing is food related, because I'm always thinking about food. When I'm eating my breakfast, I think about my lunch, and then I'm just thinking about food all day. Like the food, I have looked at some of the food photos, and it looks really amazing.
Looks good, yeah.
And then I've heard some other like contrasting opinions about how the food at the Hollywood location is like vastly, it's like really bad compared to the one in Japan. So now I'm like, again, I have like worked myself into a frenzy.
Oh no!
I'm all frothy about the food being good.
It's a frothy food frenzy.
It's a frothy food frenzy, yeah. But
Chef Toad, have faith in Chef Toad.
Please, Chef Toad, don't.
He's working hard.
The Harry Potter world food, it is so good. I would legit like eat at that restaurant on a regular basis.
What do they eat in the world of Harry Potter?
It's like British food.
A Gryffindor? Can you eat a Gryffindor?
No, a Gryffindor is not an animal.
It's not?
No.
Oh. And once again, I will forever stop talking about Harry Potter.
Yeah, but it's like, it's not only like themed.
Yeah.
You know, there's one thing to have the food look cute and themed, which is what they have here. But it needs to taste good. It needs to be good quality food. It can't just be like, you can't just phone it in, you know?
Yeah.
So I am excited to eat it and judge it.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I'm also very excited for the videos that we're going to make. We've got ideas for a couple that we're going to do.
Yes.
And I really just want to show people the park through our eyes, because I wonder how many people want to go to this but just can't.
Yeah.
You know, either because it's expensive or it's far away or it's just, you know, not in their plans.
Yeah, exactly.
So I do think that is something that's like really important, is like sharing that experience and
let
what it's
us
like.
take you on a journey, and we'll give you obviously our like very honest, like in the moment reactions as we normally always do. And I think we'll be able to tell you some insider stuff too as we go through it, to see if, you know, we pick up anything that was something that we had seen before or something that, you know, that stands out to us that's interesting. I think we'll have some really fun like little discoveries there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're so excited.
All right. On to the games we are playing.
Oh, boy.
And we are getting started with our final Like a Dragon Ishin check-in because we both finished the game.
We finished the game!
Both of us.
Oh my gosh.
I think you finished it a day after I did?
I did.
Yeah. That was great.
I think we both really like this game.
Yes.
You had mentioned that it might be in your top 10 for
I think it will
the
be.
year. It's very early.
Again, it's only March, but
yeah.
have
We
a
both
good feeling
started
about
our
this one.
Roger Space-inspired 2023 games tracking
I also
spreadsheet.
put a Bodhi flag by this game because this game is a Bodhi contender.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely Bodhi contender. But yeah, what were your thoughts now that you have completed the game?
Again, we don't review games.
But
if we did, I think I would give this like close to a 9.
I would say 8.5 out of 10.
And it's one of those things where like my brain says like maybe an 8 or an 8.5, but my heart is like, no, this was more than that.
Oh, your heart.
So it there is that like the personal tilt.
Yeah.
Of it's like, there's what it is, but then there's kind of like how it resonated with you.
Right.
I would give it higher. I thought this game had a really good ending.
I did too.
Which can always be dicey for a game.
Yeah.
I think this game did not wear out its welcome. Like a lot of games do these days, where it's like, well, we added this 20 hours of padding.
Yeah.
I finished this at about 25 hours.
Right. I mean, it said I was 2% complete with this game.
Yeah.
So the main story, if you just do the main story, it's about 20
There's
25 hours.
Almost infinite side stuff.
Right.
If you choose to do it. It's all completely
It's very fun though.
Optional.
Mahjong. Naked Mahjong.
And I really went on a journey with the historical stuff of this game.
Yeah.
Because it is really deep and it's really unapologetic about throwing it at you. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that's part of the reason why they didn't bring this out in the outside of Japan in the first place, because like, people aren't going to understand this.
Sure.
But every time I would see something that was interesting or hear about a character and I would Google them, it's like, oh, that was actually a real person.
Yeah.
And I could see, what their role in this history was and how they fit into everything. And that did give it this great layer of depth.
Right.
And so Ubisoft's making this Ninja Assassin's Creed game that I've been nervous about.
You're like wondering if
this game's years away, and it's like this game kind of nailed almost everything I want out of an Assassin's Creed game.
The historic aspect of an Assassin's Creed
it had great.
game.
The thing it didn't have is the whole huge city traversal.
Yeah,
this ultimately was a pretty enclosed.
Yeah, you
were
were on like maybe 4 or 5 streets. Really,
yeah. I mean, there was a lot going on there, and I didn't get tired of it.
No, not at all.
But we are not exploring 500 square miles of Japan.
Right,
like you would in an Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, you were very concentrated into this very these neighborhoods, these little neighborhoods in Kyoto.
But I never would have guessed that this series would have had the historical depth that you would typically see in an Assassin's Creed, or that thing where it's like, oh, this person who is a figure in history is very cleverly woven into the game.
Right.
I never would have guessed that this series would have done that. And I've just continued to be worried about the Assassin's Creed game set in Japan.
Oh boy, yeah.
Because I just think it's hard. I mean, so I was listening to the 8-4 podcast, which is a great podcast. You should all listen to.
Oh yeah, I love that.
And they were talking about how in Japan, these this period of time, a lot of these characters that are in this game are super well known. They're like household names. Like everybody learns about it in school.
Everybody learns about it. Yeah, exactly.
And for me, it's like I don't know any people.
It's like the George Washington of Japan.
I took a semester of Japanese history in college.
I did too.
And all of this is like I don't remember.
I don't remember this at all. I'm a history major, and I had to take this.
The sad truth is I think in the West, studying Eastern history is not as much a thing as it is studying Western history.
Yeah, no, that's not good.
That's one of the reasons I worry about what Ubisoft might feel like, how they have to approach it. Like, do they feel like they have to dumb it down because this is not accessible?
Right.
There's no connecting points. Like, okay, Sakamoto Ryoma, we know him now. Can the average person name one person from Japanese history?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I had to look up a lot of this stuff because I really, truly did not remember.
And it is complicated. It is very complicated.
It's a complicated history.
Yeah.
It's not as I think it's not as a storybook as some of the things that they've that Western history tries to do, kind of simplify it in a way where it's easy to understand. The other thing is, what I really liked about this game is that they really don't dumb this stuff down for you.
Yes.
They really just like throw you in, and you and I were like living and dying every day as we play this game by the story thus far recaps.
The end of chapter recaps are lifesavers.
They were total lifesavers for us, because I would play the chapter and meet all of these characters and do all of these things and then be like, wait, who was that again? Like, that seems important, but I don't remember. Like,
there's a lot of characters to keep track of.
So that was like, they really like just kind of fire hose the information to you. But I think what most Japanese historical games or games set in Japan, you know, like Ghost of Tsushima or something like that, they kind of like, they take a more just like a, what is that word? Like it's more of like a typical approach, I guess, where it's like, you know what a samurai is, you know,
You're not getting into that level of detail.
Exactly. So it's like very surface level, but you still enjoy it.
Oh, the Mongols have invaded.
Yes.
Let's fight them.
We are samurai and we have to fight.
It's kind of, that's where they leave it. You
exactly.
know?
And that's been done.
Yeah.
You know, so like for this Assassin's Creed game, if they go that route of being like surface level, like I think we've already done that every which way.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't add a level of uniqueness to it. And this game like showed me when you go deep, it does have implications on how someone consumes the story, but it also makes it feel really unique, which is what I really liked about it. But yeah. I think the other thing that was really good about this game is, like, we talked about this a lot, but it does, like, even at the end of the game where it was getting like really dramatic and like pretty serious, like there's some serious things going on, like it still had like a bit of a level of campiness, which was kind of nice. Like there was one mission toward the very end of the game where you have to take this girl like around Kyoto, kind of on like a date, like a date on the town. And like it's like right before you're about to do this like huge end of the game battle, and you're like singing karaoke and like drinking at the bar, and there's a whole chapter where you just like get really wasted with your friends, you know, at the sake bar. So it still like maintains this like really heartwarming sense of humor and like character development, and you really feel like these people could be your friends or you like relate to them, even though they're like characters from ancient Japan and like they're about to like do this, you know, insane battle.
Yeah. I also would say the action, I really respect the fighting in this game, the combat. Because when I first started, I was like, okay, there's 4 different stances, but you can kind of mash your way through it. And by the end, it was like
kind of hard.
You do need to get pretty precise with it and get to know it. And it's not like the deepest thing in the world, but there's more there than you think.
Yeah, there's more strategy than you think, and like more... You have to think through like how you're using the different stances to your advantage towards the end. Like there were some areas where I was like, oh, I have to switch to this other stance.
Right.
Like I'm really like forced to use all of the stances available to me. But yeah, the combat was like really interesting. It was, at first I was like, not sure I like this. But then like I got used to it, and I think once I started like leveling it up and like really understanding that skill tree and all that stuff, it's pretty like, it was, you know, it's pretty customizable.
But yeah, I think it's great that we both love this game. Haven't seen a ton of people talking about it, so I'd say it's worth a look.
Yeah, for sure.
You've already moved on to your next game, though.
I have.
Finally, Hogwarts Legacy. I was wondering when you would get to this game.
I know.
Or whether you'd played it all.
Yeah, we have to really eat some crow on this one, because we both we predicted a really bad Metacritic score for this game. Obviously, that's not the case, and we were like, oh, we were so wrong. And, you know, I was interested in this game, but I was worried that it was going to be bad. Of course, then I saw that it wasn't bad and people were loving it, so I was like, I have to get into this, but I wanted to give myself some time, because I knew I was going to play Ishin before this. But now that I'm done, I am finally digging into Hogwarts Legacy. I've played probably, I'm like 5 hours in at this point, I think. It's awesome. Like, as a Harry Potter fan, like, they do so many things. There's so many little details that would be so easy for them to just not do. Like, there was this part in the very, very beginning of the game, and I was telling you about this. In the world of Harry Potter, there's basically like these horseless carriages, and you can only see the horses pulling the carriage if you watch someone die in front of you. And they had this scene where your character watches someone die. This is literally the first, like, 1 minute of the game, so I'm not spoiling this for anybody. And you turn around and in this, like, moment of, like, drama, and all of the horses just appear out of nowhere because you have watched that person die. And it's like those little details, like, what? You could totally, like, just gloss over something like that, but for someone that is a fan of the series and has been, with the series for a long time, like, it means a lot to have these little details in the game. And, like, they had a really great, like, sorting hat ceremony, a really great, like, choose your wand moment. I was like, oh, I'm so in.
So you got... What, house? Is that what they call them?
Yes.
What did you get? Would you have, like, restarted the game if you did not?
You do.
Can you do it again?
It lets you choose.
This seems important. Like, people seem very invested in this.
So you kind of, like, do a little quiz in the beginning. It's pretty easy to tell what you're going to get, honestly. Okay. But I got Ravenclaw, which I'm okay with. Usually I'm a
Can you eat that too?
No. Stop it.
I don't know.
Usually I'm a Gryffindor. I was sorted into Gryffindor when I did, like, the official sorting.
Okay.
But I was like, no, I'll go with Ravenclaw. I haven't done this. I haven't pictured myself down this path before. So.
Does the game, like, split paths depending on what you get?
Maybe it depends on, like, I feel like you're probably meeting characters depending on which path you choose.
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually don't know for if that's true or not. But, like, I'm a Ravenclaw, and the two sort of main characters that I've met along my journey, one is from Gryffindor and one is from Slytherin, which is the other two houses. So I wonder if I picked a different house, would I have met characters from other houses? I don't know. Story is very interesting.
You said this takes place in the past versus, like, the Harry Potter timeline.
Right. Yeah, it's like in the 1800s.
So you don't see the characters. Do people
But
live longer in Harry Potter?
Some wizards do live longer.
Are they wizards?
Yeah, they're wizards and witches.
Okay.
They live longer. If you have the Sorcerer's Stone, you can live a really long time. But you shouldn't do that because that's not natural.
It's bad for you?
It's not natural.
Okay.
To extend your life like that. But there's a Professor Weasley is in the game, and of course Weasley is a very important family in Harry Potter. And your best friend is Ron Weasley. Harry's best friend is Ron Weasley in Harry Potter. So there is, like, a past relative, apparently, that is, like, the standing headmistress of Hogwarts. So
trying my hardest to follow along with
I'm
this.
sure people are
just nodding at you.
Yeah, so there are familiar names of characters from those families. Black is another one that people know a lot about from the Harry Potter series that's in this game. The Black family. Seems suspicious. Gotta know what's going on there. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's really good, though.
Okay.
Like, I really like the combat. It's like the wand, like the spells or whatever. It's, like, really interesting how they do it. They like, learn different spells. You can, like, do these hotkeys to use the different spells to your advantage during combat. There's, like, this fun little, like, almost like a little puzzle thing that you do to, like, unlock the spell every time you learn a new spell. Like, it's good.
And this is fully open world or pseudo open world?
It's pretty open.
How does that part of it feel?
There's tons of side quests. I'm still in the beginning of the game. I still have to, like, kind of stick to a path right now, I think. But I can see that there's, like, tons of collectibles. You can freely leave the castle and, like, wander around sort of the ground surrounding the castle.
On your invisible horse?
You don't ride the horse. They just pull the carriages.
I see. That would be silly. Riding an invisible horse.
Exactly. Who
would think of such a ridiculous thing?
I did get a spell to make me invisible recently.
Oh, okay.
And I snuck into the restricted area of the library.
Oh, the restricted area.
This is dangerous.
Reading these dirty books or what?
Dark magic.
Oh, dark magic.
Dark.
Okay.
So dark.
Yeah.
Anyways, really, really good. Gonna keep going.
They got pictures of Jack Black in a Bowser costume in those books. Don't read those.
Without the censorship. No censoring. Don't let the kids read those.
So this sounds like your next big thing.
I'm gonna play it.
You are playing it.
I'm so excited. It's so good, you guys. It's so good.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm happy for you. After I finished Like a Dragon, I wanted to check out Wolong.
Yes.
Which is a new game. I played it on Xbox. I'm not sure if it's on it's on Game Pass.
Right. So it's easy for you to check it out.
I saw this first when it was announced in I think the Xbox E3-ish showcase.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought it was just kind of a pretty straightforward action game set in the Dynasty Warriors time period. The Three Kingdoms.
Yes.
Which is like, I think they said it's like 100 AD. So
it's like your favorite time period
I love this time period. So this was like a major selling point for me. It was like a different kind of game set in this setting with all of these characters that I know. And a lot of those characters are in there, but they're done differently. So this game is actually more of a Souls type game, which I didn't realize until recently.
It's hard.
It's very hard. I've probably run my course with it.
Is it Elden Ring? Okay, so it's harder than Elden Ring.
I don't know. I mean, I almost finished Elden Ring, so you just kind of need to be more in the right mindset to play this kind of game.
Is it open world?
No, so it seems to be more just like levels. Like you finish this level and then you move on. The levels seem pretty big, but there's just a lot of like those games, there's a lot of kind of obscure mechanics that you need to wrap your mind around. This one is all about these like the morale system, where it's like you build your morale, or the enemy can have high morale, and that really impacts like how much damage you're doing and stuff. I'll be honest, I did not completely understand that.
That's interesting.
There was a lot of stuff, a lot of like under the hood kind of mechanics that they were trying to explain. That's like, I don't know if I completely grasp this.
Okay.
But the action, it is more fast-paced action than I'd say a FromSoft game. It's by Koei Tecmo. I think Team Ninja.
Okay.
Going out on a limb, I think they developed this game.
They did a lot of
so obviously
games,
they know a lot about fast-paced action. So that part of it's good. It feels very good. There's a lot of different weapons that you can get. But it is the same sort of thing of like, well, if you die and you can, any enemy can kill you, you kind of go back to where you were, you lose your experience, you try and get it back. There did seem to be a good number of checkpoints along the way, though, which was good.
Okay.
Another thing that people have been talking about with this game is like the first boss is a crazy difficulty spike versus even from people who have played further, like the later bosses.
I see.
And
this is like testing your mettle?
It must be just like, hey, let's see if you've learned enough. But that boss comes pretty early on. Like,
did you beat it?
No.
Oh.
That was where I stopped. I played, it was like 30 minutes of playing and then you're at this boss. And it's like, I'm still getting the hang of the basics here.
Oh, that's hard.
So
you're like kind of like thrown into this really big battle without knowing.
I felt it came way too soon. And it was one of those things where it's like I could get in maybe like a hit before I died. So I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be doing this.
That's frustrating.
Yeah. So I didn't stop playing it because I didn't like it. I just didn't want to be playing that kind of game right now.
Right.
So
yeah, it does take a lot of commitment and mental preparedness to play a game like that.
Yeah. It did also have, again, compared to Dynasty Warriors, like this kind of like supernatural, fantastical element to it, where it's like some of the enemies would seem like they're possessed, or you're fighting these like monster type.
Did you have magic?
Yes, you can get magic. So like, I could shoot like a lightning bolt at somebody.
Interesting.
Which I didn't know a ton about this game going into it. I kind of wasn't expecting that aspect of it. Maybe I would have liked... This is probably the first time this has ever been said. I would have liked the more grounded Dynasty Warriors.
Only for you.
It's grounded.
Like 1% of this.
Right. But it looked nice. It played well. So if that sounds like it's something you're looking for, I think it's worth checking out.
Okay.
And then finally, just thought we'd talk a little bit about the Minish Cap. Because we played that we played the first hour. We played past the first dungeon.
Played past the first dungeon. Right. Went pretty well, I thought. No areas where we were like, oh my gosh, we're totally stuck and don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Although I did hear that later dungeons get pretty challenging in this game.
Puzzle-wise, yes.
Puzzle-wise, yes. Which is, I know
That's my problem.
You're a little stressed out by that. But I was really surprised because I had no experience playing this game before. I had I just didn't even know anything really that much about this game. So, yeah, I was really surprised by it. Like, the whole you turning tiny and going into these little, I don't know, what are they? The Minish? Peoples?
Yeah.
Elves? Whatever?
The Keebler elves.
The mini Keebler elves going into their, tree, whatever.
Right.
So cute.
Yeah, that seems like a cool mechanic. It just felt like, like this lost SNES Zelda game.
Yeah.
Which is a great thing to have and just sort of uncover and find. So, yeah, I whether we're streaming it or, whether we don't, I definitely want to keep going with it.
Yeah, me too.
It seemed great, and it didn't seem terribly long either.
People say it's like 20 hours or so.
Yeah.
Not too long. Yeah.
It did make me think, though, so many people are going back to Game Boy Advance, or they're playing it for the first time. It did remind me of this weird quote from Sony, which I tweeted out over the weekend, about when they were introducing the PSP, and they were going up against Nintendo, obviously, and it was like the Game Boy Advance to DS transition they were going through, too. Kaz Hirai, who was the head of PlayStation at this time, had this really weird line. It was like, we're going to elevate people out of the handheld ghetto with the PSP.
Yeah.
And I tweeted that line out, and I don't think people understood that that was a direct quote from Sony. It's not really something I would say ordinarily, and I shared the link with some people, and they're like, oh my God.
Yeah,
wow. Like mid-2000s Sony would say some wild stuff.
I mean, they're still saying wild stuff nowadays, so maybe it's just their...
But there was kind of that mindset of like, oh, we're finally getting away from these kiddie games, or we're going to have proper, with good graphics.
I'm telling you, it's like the edgy era.
More mature storylines.
Sure.
And it's like, obviously there ended up being room for both, and it was silly to dismiss these games, and now they're being celebrated. But that was just a weird point in history that I was reminded of as I was remembering the Game Boy Advance and DS generations.
Yeah,
like,
of course Nintendo leaned into that.
That was strange.
That's sort of the other side of it, which is being more kiddie, and the DS was like WarioWare and like whatever. Like those are the launch titles for that. Mario Kart,
Yeah.
So it's like,
but since all of these handheld systems have been on people's mind, we did a poll with our Patreon subscribers and asked them, when you consider everything that they had to offer, which is hardware and games and everything else, which Nintendo handheld system is your favorite? So the options were Game Boy and Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, or Nintendo 3DS. Nintendo 3DS won. It's actually, the vote grew with every single entry. So Nintendo 3DS won with 44%, Nintendo DS came in second with 27%, Game Boy Advance third with 20%, and Game Boy last with 9%. Did this surprise you?
I was kind of surprised that Game Boy Advance and DS were so far below 3DS.
Yeah.
I would think that DS would be a little higher, because it's like the first entry into this new, this new era of Nintendo handheld systems or whatever. So there's a bit more importance in my brain about that. But
I would put DS and 3DS as my top two, and it would probably be quite close. I remember when those generations ended, I was like, yeah, that was really, really good.
Yeah.
Both of those.
I felt like the transition from DS to 3DS was very seamless, because no one cared about the 3D part of the 3DS. So it was just like you had a more powerful handheld.
Right.
So it almost bleeds together for me into one long era.
Yeah.
But it is kind of interesting that DS didn't score higher.
Game Boy, I understand why that came in last. Some people were pointing out, like, maybe there's a generational thing here, where it's like you kind of get attached to whichever system you played first.
Oh, totally.
Although I played the Game Boy, and I was like, this is
it's a little dicey.
Quite limited, technically.
Right.
Chris said, having lived through each of these generations, I think the GBA is the standout to me. The GBA generation finally introduced built-in lighting and rechargeable batteries, which were game changers. The game library also felt like it was a bit of an SNES 2D revival in an age where everything was about polygon counts. The GBA library had the right mix of quality NES, SNES ports, and unique new games, and when combined with the full Game Boy Color backwards compatibility, could not be beat. The backwards compatibility came up a few times of like, this actually combined generations, which was, I think that's a good point. Silphco said, it's so close to me between the DS and the 3DS. Both have fantastic game libraries, but DS has its GBA compatibility, so it wins in my eyes. Maybe I'll get even more nostalgic for the 3DS library over time, though. The nostalgia factor.
It makes a big difference.
Although it didn't seem to matter in this vote. And then finally, MaddDog5981 says, unlike Nintendo's home consoles, each new handheld truly built and improved on all of the previous systems. By the 3DS, gamers had access to innovative, modern, portable 3D gameplay, built-in DS game support, and a robust virtual console of Game Boy games, not to mention a thriving indie eShop scene. The 3DS felt like a culmination of almost 3 decades of portable Nintendo gaming.
That's what I think, too.
Which is a good point,
I think that's a good point, and I agree with that. It's like, it definitely felt like one long generation. Almost.
And that same point with that, like, that's what Nintendo was saying when the Switch was introduced. It's like, look at all of the little bits and pieces we have taken that you loved from our previous generations and put it into this thing.
Let's hope that the next system, next Switch,
we're bringing back the gamepad.
Oh boy. Uh-oh. Okay, let's strap your finger into a vitality sensor.
Nintendo TV is back because you demanded it.
Put your finger in the vitality sensor.
I don't want to.
Put it in.
I don't want to.
Oh boy.
So that was very interesting to look back, and it's fun to see this revival of all these Nintendo handhelds.
It's just nice to have.
Whether it's for good reasons of these games coming to NSO or bad reasons because they're pulling the plug on these shops.
It's over, guys. It's all coming to an end.
That is. Before we go any further, this episode is sponsored by ExpressVPN.
Oh,
thank you.
Yes, thank you, ExpressVPN.
Take it from us, people who do videos and video game awards about butts of the year. Sometimes you need a good VPN.
You gotta search for some stuff.
Right.
Jack Black's One-Up Mushroom is not going to be safe for you to search for.
Incognito mode does not hide your activity from everything. It doesn't matter how many times you are clearing your browser. Certain people can still see this stuff, but that's where ExpressVPN comes in to save the day.
Exactly. And it reroutes your internet connection through their secure server so that your ISP cannot be seen. But the sites that you visit.
Right.
It's very nice.
And it's very seamless to use. A lot of times you don't even know that it's running in the background, so it's a great tool for you to have as you do your stuff on the internet. And it's available on all your devices, including phones, even your smart TV.
Wow.
Amazing. So, protect your online activity today with the VPN rated #1 by Business Insider. Visit our exclusive link, expressvpn.com/KitandKrysta, and you can get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/KitandKrysta, expressvpn.com/KitandKrysta to learn more.
We will put the link right here and also in the description below.
You can't spell Bodie without VPN.
I was like, you can't spell express without Bodie. Wait, what?
All right, let's get into the news.
Oh, yes. This is an interesting story.
Yeah, we wanted to start with Final Fantasy 16 because there was a lot that came out about this game last week. They were on a big press tour for this game, so there were new previews that came out. Not a lot of new videos, though. It's like, this is a very old school press tour that you guys did.
Just like developer interviews.
They had interviews, they had like text-only previews. They may have had like a new screenshot or two. I thought the one video they did I saw was the developers were actually like, we are on a press tour. We hope to share the experience of our game with the media.
This is like the early, we're back in 2012 or what?
They were like standing in front of some castle or something. I was like, what? I don't think this was necessary, but it seems like you guys are having a good time.
All right, we're on a press tour.
The game itself, was there anything you saw in these previews that stood out to you, surprised you?
Not really.
Oh.
Oh, why? Doesn't it surprise you?
Well,
I was thinking this is very typical of what I was thinking this game would be.
I had been wondering, because all the trailers made it look really action-oriented versus the turn-based stuff. And I was like, oh, I wonder how this will actually play. And a lot of the previews were saying, there is zilch as far as turn-based stuff, and this basically plays like a God of War or Devil May Cry were the two series that were referenced multiple times.
Right. It's more like...
So it's just like a straight action game with some RPG stuff into it, which frankly, so many games have now. It's just a sprinkling of RPG stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a new direction. They've always kind of dabbled with different ways of doing combat in Final Fantasy. Yeah. This is something that's completely new. We'll see how it goes. They obviously want to reach a new audience with this and make it accessible.
I think so. And I think that their choice of taking as much of the RPG stuff out is reflected in what they were saying on this tour. It
feels like it's made for more of a Western audience than other Final Fantasies, with it going back to that medieval setting. It seems to be pulling a little bit from Game of Thrones here and there in terms of being a dark fantasy story.
That's what I had already expected though, and that's what kind of was confirmed by these previews as well.
I have to imagine, again, this is a very expensive game to make. Square Enix is also the king of, at an earnings call, announcing how their high-profile game underperformed as far as making money.
Pressure.
So I have to imagine that was like, we can't torpedo ourselves with this game. We need to make sure this game hits.
Pressure is on, yeah.
So there was all the conversation about the game itself, but then there was this other quote from the developer around kind of how they see themselves and whether they do or do not see themselves as a JRPG. So I'll just read the quote because it's interesting. And Yoshida is the developer here. One thing Yoshida wants to get across is that when we create games, we don't go into them thinking we are creating JRPGs. We are just creating RPGs. The term JRPG is used by Western media rather than users and media in Japan. So that's the first part. And then it continues. This is going to depend on who you ask, but there was a time when this term first appeared 15 years ago, and for us as developers was the first time we heard it. It was like a discriminatory term, as though we were being made fun of for creating these games, and so for some developers the term JRPG can be something that will maybe trigger bad feelings because of what it was in the past. And it goes on and on and on, but basically they don't like that term and they do not want people to view these games
as JRPGs.
Through that lens.
Yeah, it's interesting that they considered the term JRPG as discriminatory or negative, because I don't think...
It's funny because, yes, there have been times where that has been used in like a mean way, but also there are a lot of people who, if you ask, what is your favorite genre?
They're seeking out a specific genre.
I love JRPGs.
Yeah, I think that JRPGs certainly have a certain identity, for better or worse. But there's a huge audience of people searching out and seeking out those types of games. But I think, back to your earlier point about them really wanting to make this game more mainstream and more accessible, I think the term JRPG to them might feel like a turnoff for a lot of people.
Exactly.
And I think that is why they're being very strong about saying that this is not what this is, because they don't want this mass audience to be like, JRPG, oh, that sounds long and hard, or whatever things you associate with a JRPG, whether you like it or not, and have that be a turn-off.
Yeah, somebody who buys God of War might not think they are JRPG material.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
exactly.
Again, if that is your target audience of like the mass player who plays God of War, then yeah, I can understand why you would say that.
I do wonder, like, in this recent era where a lot of these games have sort of popped out of their, niche audiences, like an Elden Ring is a good example of this. That game is for a very specific audience. It's not a JRPG, obviously, but it's, the Souls audience is a specific type of player. And I wonder if these other developers are seeing sort of these games have these like breakout titles and wondering if they can achieve the same thing,
Yeah, and in this case, Final Fantasy has been a big seller for a long time. So it's not like this has been this struggling franchise.
No.
But again...
But I do think Final Fantasy is for a specific kind of player, though.
Well, not according to him. It's for
now he's making a real point of this, though.
Right.
But previously, I think, if you think about Final Fantasy, you kind of have a specific player in mind that's like a Final Fantasy fan. And I think they want to break out of that is the point.
Right. He's making this point about how, we don't want to be seen as JRPGs, like we don't like that term. It's like he is kind of furthering that kind of mindset through this comment.
That's true.
And I think there probably are developers that are like, yeah,
WTF.
This is what we make. And the origins of the term are interesting. I don't know exactly when it started to come in.
Yeah. I wonder if Final Fantasy is one of the games that sort of started the origin of the phrase JRPG. Ironically.
These genres are really hard to label onto anything these days because
it's like a construct.
So many games are just a mashup of everything.
Right.
like that was one of the, like Cliffy B, the Gears of War guy, like that was one of the like very forward-looking things he said. It was like, in the future, like every game is going to be an RPG. And he's kind of right.
He's kind of right.
It's like, how do you define an RPG?
It's a
like,
role-playing game.
It's like, I don't know.
It's like you're playing this role as
the number goes up. Yeah. That's what's an RPG.
I mean, Fortnite could be an RPG. You're playing a role of a guy doing this thing.
So I don't really care to debate like what the term means, because it probably means different things to different people.
Yeah. But we do have this like unbelievable need as humans to categorize and compartmentalize.
So there, I understand why those still exist.
It exists for that reason, and I think he's like staunchly trying to fight against it. Like he says, like, I don't want to be put in this JRPG box. I don't want this game to be put in this box. You know, people should kind of take it for what, like, play it and see it for what it is, and not like give a label to it.
The other thing I'll say,
don't label my relationship.
The other thing I'll say to that is, this is Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, the other 15, those weren't for you. This one though, we on the 16th try, we got it. Yeah. It's like maybe, I don't know. Did you consider like changing the name, or just like Final Fantasy :
here we go.
Not a Roman numeral.
The Final Fantasy subtitles are always the worst.
Yeah.
Chronicles of the Crystal King, Tears of the blah blah.
I mean, that's too coherent probably for them, but
yeah, no kidding.
You know, I did go back through. There were some things that came up specifically of like, yeah, this is maybe what he was talking about. I had an interesting experience with one in 2012 at GDC. You remember that was the year we had Mr. Hayashida over to talk about Super Mario 3D Land.
Yes.
He's the director of that game, and a wonderful person. And
Captain Toad.
That was the GDC where Phil Fish, who is the indie developer of Fez, he kind of went a little
off the
wacky.
rails.
And so apparently he got asked a question in a panel by a Japanese person of what he thought of modern Japanese video games, and his response was, "Your games just suck." And then he just went, it's like, you know, your heart just stops, like imagining this scenario.
Yeah.
And he went on, and he's kind of disappeared from gaming since, so this was kind of like the end of him.
Swan song?
But I remember talking with Mr. Hayashida and the other people in we had a pretty small group. It was like 4 or 5 of us, and we were talking about it. And I think the people from NOA were more upset about it than he was.
Yeah.
I think he was like kind of curious about it, of like,
well, why would he think that?
Yeah, or what might be motivating him to say that? He definitely was not upset.
Like offended or anything.
He was more like analytical about it.
Yeah.
But we were both like, we're gonna stuff his
what
head
a jerk!
I'm gonna stick his head in the toilet. You know, like that kind of stuff.
Don't find me in a dark alley.
Right. So that's a cringy and terrible example. And obviously a ridiculous label to put on all of Japan and Japanese games and games.
Yeah.
So yeah, this phrasing and this wording really clearly stuck a phrase with this developer, but also very clearly they have reasons to want to distance themselves from this label.
Yeah, exactly.
This game's coming soon. This game's coming out in
July, right?
3 months, 4 months.
Is it July? Yeah.
It's in that huge glut around June, July. So yeah.
Doesn't seem like it's getting delayed either. So this is
no. If they're going on this big press tour,
this one is probably locked.
The game must be pretty close to done.
It's probably done. Yeah.
Next, March 9th. That's today, depending on when you're listening it.
Yeah.
Metroid Fusion is out.
Oh my gosh.
On Nintendo Switch Online.
That was a surprise. I was like, I'm here for all of the Samus
That's
stuff.
a quick turnaround for new games. Has it even been a month since they put this out?
No. Not at all. It's only like 2 weeks.
I guess they aspire to do once a month some sort of update. They don't always do it.
Yeah.
The GBA offerings are a little bit thin, so that's a great addition. Have you played this game?
I have not.
Oh, I have. I think you'll like it.
I think so too. Yeah. And I want to play it because it's in the storyline of Dread.
Yes.
Or it's in the storyline of those recent 2D Metroid games.
Yeah. This is a really great game. Again, I wonder how many people got to experience because it was on the Game Boy Advance, and people might have thought like, oh, this is a smaller game or not worthy of Metroid. It's like, no, it's a proper full-on 2D Metroid.
Yeah.
With some interesting stuff that they don't do in other games in the series. So
now you can play them all in sequential order.
So this is my point. very slowly, every Metroid game is becoming available on the Switch. What does it mean?
Well, that means the trilogy, the Prime trilogy, will also be there.
But beyond that, what does it mean? Is my prediction coming true of Metroid Prime 4 coming out this year?
It's looking likely.
So what are the big games we're still missing? Zero Mission on Game. That's another game. That's one that I haven't played that I really want to.
I bet they're going to bring that.
They absolutely.
They have to.
That's a remake of the first Metroid game.
That's right, Zero Mission.
And
yes, I've not played this one either.
The first Metroid game on NES is a tough play these days, so I want that. The other two Prime games. 2 and 3, yeah. What else? Is that maybe it? Other M, obviously, that's not considered a proper... Don't even say it! Pull the plug! The baby.
We're not manifesting that.
The baby.
We're not manifesting the baby.
Yeah, like they're close to having the
library.
The whole darn thing there. So just imagine if they could get a couple more of these games out before E3 time for the big reveal of Metroid Prime 4. The warm-up marketing is working.
We're warm. We're so warm.
We're going from warm to hot.
We're getting hot.
Okay?
Yeah. Getting toasty here. Getting real toasty.
I need to get into a new suit. It's getting so hot.
This is not the
I'm taking
end
damage
of Metroid.
No. Do you want to amend your prediction about Metroid Prime 4 based on this?
No.
No. What was your prediction, actually? I don't remember.
Mine is they're going to hold it for
next system
next year. It's going to be... I feel like they're warming us up for the long haul.
All right.
Because I think that they might announce the next 2 Prime games coming out this holiday.
Okay. Interesting. It does seem to be a lot of heat just around Metroid right now. Like, I've heard some kind of anecdotal sales numbers around the Prime remaster, which are really good.
Really high, yep.
So this is going in the right direction.
Yes.
Final news story, there was very low-key announced Elden Ring expansion.
Yes.
Shadow of the Erd Tree. I missed this that morning for a couple hours, and then I was like, huh? Wait, what?
Yeah. I did see it in the morning, but I was like, wait, is there more to this than just
it's like
one thing?
Couldn't believe it. Like that was just how they announced it.
It was just it was just like another day.
It was a tweet that had
another tweet.
It had some artwork or a screenshot or something.
It was one screenshot.
And it was just like,
this is coming.
This is in development. Okay.
Great.
Sony did just have a state of play
the
week before. This could have been the massive closing news. Could it just stuck it in there? Literally the same thing. Have somebody read that. Read the tweet. I mean, that would have been way more impactful.
It is I.
I don't know.
Maybe they want to keep it low key.
Why?
I don't know. Game of the year? Come on, you don't need to keep it low key.
I think they're just in the zone now. They're like, we'll do what we want. We don't need any help.
Hot shots.
We're good. Yeah.
Big shots.
We're hot stuff now.
We're hot stuff.
Yeah. Are you excited for this?
I mean, they can announce it any which way they want, but I'm very excited for this. I've been, obviously there's still more of the Elden Ring world for me to explore, even though I beat the game, but been waiting for some sort of expansion to bring me back to that, and I'm here. I'm ready.
I'm excited too, although I will admit there are parts of the main map that I did not fully explore.
Yeah.
So maybe it's hypocritical to be like, I need this DLC.
Right,
it's like there's so much more game there of the base game.
You had put it down because you wanted to explore more and level up more and then try to finish the game eventually. But this is a good reason to do that.
I was vastly underleveled for for the final boss. I learned the hard way. So that's why I put it down.
A week of struggling. Yeah.
I have seen some, the people who do Elden Ring lore stuff are all over this already.
Again, I'm very confused by the lore stuff.
To a degree that I was pretty amazed by.
Yeah.
Just
by the one screenshot and the name of the expansion.
Yeah, they're like, here's my 80-minute think piece on this. Like, whoa. But good for them. That's not really how I want to focus on this game, but
I've tried really hard.
Glad it's there for somebody.
I'm a story girl, and I've tried so hard to understand. I watched so many videos when I was playing Elden Ring, but I still don't get it. Yeah. It still went over my head. I'm like, who the heck is Melania, and who's that guy? He's a lion, but also some sort of weird.
Oh yeah.
The children and then the
Radagon
and
or something.
Radon and.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Sure.
I don't know.
Sure.
Let's get into our questions.
Okay.
Every question we get is from our Patreon subscribers. Thank you to everybody for submitting these. Our first question is from Video Game Stupid, very timely to the discussion. This was actually submitted before the Final Fantasy debate. Hi, Kit and Krysta. My question is kind of a follow-up to a question from a bonus Q&A session from ages past. Someone had asked what your favorite waifus and husbandos outside of JRPGs are, and you both mentioned Legend of Zelda characters. I will ask the age-old question, is Zelda a JRPG?
Slash RPG.
Slash RPG. It's actually had nothing to do with waifus and husbandos.
Yeah.
You thought it did, but it didn't.
Red herring.
I was ready.
Red herring, you guys. Well, here we go.
Now you're afraid to say it is.
Well, I think it is.
You think it's a JRPG?
I don't think it's an RPG.
You do?
Don't you think it's not?
All of Zelda or just certain games?
Breath of the Wild, I think, definitely is an RPG, no?
Really?
Tears of the Kingdom. Twilight Princess would be an RPG. Ocarina of Time could be an RPG.
I feel differently, but
what do you think? What do you think?
I think it's an action adventure game.
You think it's an action adventure?
The number doesn't go up.
But you're role playing as Link.
Okay, I mean you could say that about any game. Like I'm role playing as Mario.
That's what I'm saying. That's why these are all.
I'm Chris Pratt role playing as Mario, stomping turtles.
These turtles every day.
In 1975.
Since I was a 5-year-old, I've been stomping these turtles. I've been role playing
Mario, right?
I mean, that's my point, though. Where do you draw the line? Where is your guardrail on what role you're playing and whether or not that role is significant enough for you to categorize it as an RPG?
Everybody has a different definition of it, but I think there's still kind of a depth. And again, to me, a lot of it does come down to numbers, which is ridiculous.
You want levels?
No, but it's like, yeah, there's levels or other things or just other stats that are involved or like customization, more customization. Of
Link has a million outfits plus a Switch t-shirt.
It's like, this Link, like I made this Link to have more strength or more dexterity or more whatever. Like
with all the weapons you can get.
You can get more stamina, you can get more hearts.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's just more action adventure to me. No, it's not.
Okay, so you don't think it is. I think it is.
No, it's fine.
Great.
Yeah, there's no one definition. It's a made-up term, apparently.
It is.
Cerulean Dragon asks, this is also perhaps related to Final Fantasy. Briefly mentioned this in the general chat today, but my hot take on the evening is doing away with press demos and making these demos accessible to more people. As a gamer, I'd rather play something myself than read about someone else's experience. No two people will view a game the same way. With cloud streaming technology available, there are ways to make these demos unable to be data mined, since there's almost nothing downloaded to your console. If kept small enough or some sort of timer was imposed, I think the excitement of playing something early would be a huge marketing boon. I know there would be less control, but I feel the excitement and hype of such a limited time thing may help mask a negative press that an editorial lens would gloss over anyway. We've even seen some publishers like Square Enix release demos months or even a year out from a launch as a way to get feedback from the player and make improvements, something they did with Triangle Strategy in Final Fantasy 15. This is something you'd likely not get from a press tour. What are your thoughts on this? Now that you don't have easy access to internal or press demos, do you feel like you're missing out? So is the press demo, should this be a thing of the past? Press only.
Well, I think there's two different things you're getting out of a free demo to everybody and a press tour. I think you are achieving different results. You know, obviously, to Cerulean Dragon's point, you would be able to get the game out to more people. If you're just doing like a demo that's open to everybody, you can, if you wanted to play test something, you could do that. Nintendo does do a lot of demos these days as well. Like, you know, they have demos for most of their games. Well, I guess not most, some of their games. We saw like many after the Nintendo Direct. But I think it's less about like getting like news coverage and more just like engaging with your player base. I do think there is like a specific thing that you're getting out of a press demo, because you are like potentially reaching new audiences of people that are not currently playing any of your games or know about video games through press demos. You're sort of like controlling the type of messaging that's getting out about your games, you're controlling the sort of the visuals that are getting out of your games, but I do think it's kind of doing two different things.
Yeah. So Cerulean Dragon mentions this point of control, which is, I think, the linchpin of this whole thing. Unfortunately, the general public cannot be trusted with a game that is not finished.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, E3 demos or a demo you see at PAX is basically to the quality of the finished game.
Yes.
Where a lot of times when we'd show something to press, it was like, you'd spend some time explaining, like, hey, we still have, a year of development, and this thing, we're going to work on that, don't worry.
Yeah, there's a dev menu over here, ignore that.
And it's like, for all the downsides of the press that you might have in your mind, like, that they are equipped to understand that and kind of make sense of what it all means. Whereas I don't trust the public to do that, and there's a reason this doesn't happen, is that trust is not there. And they mention streaming technology. It's like, well, is somebody really equipped to differentiate a bad internet connection with the game being bad? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't risk that.
Yeah.
So again, I think there's reasons why these things continue to happen. I think there's more place for more
finished
consumer interactions and more finished demos. I would love to see that. I think we might see more ways to do this in the future, but right now I'm not sure there's a super great way to do it.
Right.
So, Daniel Cold is next. What was the internal reaction to ARMS when it came out? Not just the gameplay, but also the art style. I stopped playing it early since Splatoon 2 came out and it took up all my time, but to me this showed some much needed creativity when it comes to creating new and exciting Nintendo characters. I feel bad that the game got overlooked like this.
Me too. For ARMS. The funniest thing for ARMS when this game came out is we were all like, wait, that's the real name for the game? Like, it's just called ARMS?
Yeah. That's silly.
We were really, like, surprised by that, because usually Nintendo games, they put a little more thought into that title. But it's very descriptive of what the game is, I guess. I think we all were in that time period where, like, we were fresh off the newness of younger Splatoon devs. So we were like, oh, cool. This is, like, another one of those, like, new IP... new generation of Nintendo development, doing something fun and different and not just like, making another Mario or Zelda game. So we were all excited about that. But the part that really sort of made us a little bit disappointed is that they created this world with all of these different characters that were all so like unique and zany and like cool, but we knew nothing about them.
Yeah.
There was no backstory about why did they have the springy arms and who were they? So it was really hard for us to like connect to the game on a deeper level. Yeah. I think that's why a lot of people fell off too.
This was a major missed opportunity because there was a lot of interest in these characters and people wanted to learn more, and we would go to the dev team and say like, well, what other materials or information can we share? And they're like, there's nothing.
Right.
We have literally nothing. I'm like, oh.
But why though?
And this was also at the same time, I remember Overwatch was coming out.
Right.
And the complete opposite was happening, where people were getting so deep into these characters and creating these affinities with these characters and just, engrossing themselves in so much information. And was like, oh, I got nothing. So I think that kind of hurt the longevity of this game a little bit, where it's like, well, you can play it and either you like it or you don't, but then...
Because they invested that kind of character development and world building into Splatoon.
Yeah.
But it just was not a part of the plan for ARMS, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it was such a rich, they started out with such a rich, like, cast.
Right.
That we just never saw. I mean, we had, like, Amiibo for them and, like, all this stuff. Like, but it just sort of, like, fell off a cliff.
Yeah, this is one of those games where I'm really, really curious if it ever gets a sequel or not.
God.
I think it's sold fine. Like, it wasn't gangbusters, but it wasn't a dud.
Yeah. Mr. Yabuki needs to come back and do some, he's Kung Fu Master. He's
got to work on a game that's going to sell 5 bajillion copies.
Mario Kart 9. Yeah. So, yeah, exactly.
Priorities. Right. Paul Gale's next. Hey, Kit and Krysta, if Metroid Prime Remastered ends up being one of your favorite games of the year, is it validated, in your opinion, to be up for a Game of the Year nomination? Oh. It's not a straight port, like having The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time on NSO, but it's also not entirely a fully remake like Resident Evil 4. If it does have enough new, though, that it looks and plays like a modern game, there definitely was solid effort put in. What do you think? Thanks. We talked about this a while back.
Yeah, does remastered or HD remasters or, any game like that deserve to be on a Game of the Year nomination list? What do you think?
I think it can. I don't know if this is the one to do it.
Right. I think it needs to have more than just a graphical upgrade, though.
See, again, this is where I'm glad that we're not media, because we don't need to have like
a deep discussion about this.
Like a dedicated webpage of like, here's our policy on blah blah blahs in the Game of the Year. It's like, yeah, we can just decide how we feel about it.
Yeah, totally.
I do think there would need to be some next step or some building upon the original to do it.
Like, what would be a good example of one that would meet the bar? Not Final Fantasy
I don't know. I mean, this Resident Evil 4 game could. But it's as Paul says here, that's maybe going too far. Yeah. So, but I mean, it's still a remake. So
right. You're still kind of basing it on the base game.
Yeah.
But I feel like Metroid is almost like a straight port, just with upgraded graphics. I don't think they're doing anything in terms of...
I think especially... I'm sorry, I cut you off.
You really did. I don't think they're doing anything in terms of upgrading the game.
For once, I cut you off and I stopped and I apologized.
1 out of 20 times today? Good. I'm glad you're self-aware finally. I don't know what I was saying anymore.
Oh, no!
Something about... Oh, yeah.
Wendy Millay.
Hi, Wendy. Oh, no. My brain.
I'll say what I was going to say and then it'll come back to you. There is an aspect of we are re-delivering this game to a new generation.
Okay.
So it's basically a new game. It's not like we waited 5 years and we redid it. Like, this has been 20 years.
Oh, you mean like new to them?
Yeah, it's like there are people who were not alive.
But not new to
and
you.
would never... Well, so?
It can't be on your list.
Sure it could.
It's not new to you.
But like, I think in the general consciousness, like, like if you took an all-time classic and you made it relevant and to the standards of today...
Sure.
That's a fair point, otherwise, these people would know, like I've heard of this. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I can get behind that.
Yeah. I feel like this is something where like movies are maybe more open to this kind of thing because...
Well, they just reboot it. That's different.
You can't like. I guess you're always bringing in like new actors, so it feels different.
You have to do so much more work.
Right. Or there was like The Departed was based on a Hong Kong movie, which I don't think many people know.
Yeah, but that's straight up a new movie.
That's basically a totally different movie.
Yeah. So you're just you're just...
But I'm open to this.
Okay. All right.
Nathan asks, what is the relationship between NOA and Nintendo of Japan in terms of releasing games? I used to assume NOA just took whatever Japan gave them and tried to make it work the best they can. But I wonder how much influence NOA has on games developed or release timing. For example, let's say Kirby works really well in Japan, releasing in February, but NOA thinks Kirby does better in the summer for the United States. Would NOA push back at all? Provide data? Or does NOA just conform to the Japan schedule? Similarly, I've read that Nintendo finds Metroid doesn't do well in Japan, but America loves it, so Nintendo continues to try developing new games. Is that something NOA brings up to prompt Metroid development, or is Japan making its own decisions using just spreadsheets or whatever? Not just
always
not using NOA staff to make that decision. Interesting question here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like in the last, as we got closer to, when we stopped working at Nintendo, it was really on this like pretty strict global schedule. There were times early in my career at Nintendo when there were some differentiating, time frames or dates for launch or even dates for announcements when we weren't as globally coordinated. But now it's so hard because like everyone, no matter which region you announce something in, can see the information. No matter which game or which region the game launches, and you could port that version. So it doesn't seem to make that much sense to have a not globally coordinated launch these days.
Yeah. I think it's very clearly for the best that every game just comes out on the same day.
Right.
Because people who want that game, they're going to find some other way
to get it.
Yeah. But in terms of this kind of behind the scenes jockeying and stuff, like that absolutely happens.
Oh,
like
yeah.
That's one of the jobs of the Treehouse is to, give feedback reflecting our market to the developers, and they listen to that. And yeah, I do think like there are games where there are certain lead markets in mind,
yes,
and they have more of a say about when it might come out or other really important decisions.
Yeah,
and I think that extends to all sorts of things. So, for example, the last Nintendo Direct was at 2 p.m. and not 6 in the morning. The main game in there was Metroid, which is for mostly the US and not Japan. So I think if the lead game had been something very Japan oriented, it might have been at 6 a.m., which is a more favorable time for Japan.
Yeah.
So, yes, that sort of... Also spreadsheets, though.
Spreadsheets.
A
lot of spreadsheets. The roadmaps are on spreadsheets, yeah.
Seafoam Gaming has the next question. Hey, Kit and Krysta, as a freelance game reviewer for 9 years now, I remember in my earlier days when I was foolishly desperate to review Nintendo games and get on that ambassador program. During that endeavor, I was at least able to get the gist of which games were sent out to my peers in writing more often than not. On a possibly Pokemon Day related topic, one aspect I did catch on was how during Holiday 2015, some games like Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon were hardly if ever sent to the press at all, unless it was post-launch. It seems the focus that fall was all on Amiibo Festival and Ultra Smash, even though my opinion, Mystery Dungeon was the best game of that fall. Any insight into what determines which games Nintendo pushes to outlets for review? Even sites like IGN didn't get a copy of Mystery Dungeon. There are games where there are worries about how a game will review.
Right.
So you think about what are your options? And sometimes the option is...
Do not do a review.
You will not get it.
Yeah. Do not do a review.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the situation with this particular game. Also, Mystery Dungeon was a game that we would have worked on with the Pokemon Company, and they may have also had very interesting rules at the time, especially back in that year, where they were much more controlling and strict about how to manage a review cycle for one of their games. Where they very, I don't remember if this is true or not, but I think, they very well could have told us, like, do not send this game out. Everybody will be getting this game at launch.
Yeah. You're basically trying to avoid a review being posted for as long as possible.
Right.
And, basically, there might be some people who are interested in the game. Like, oh, let's go to Metacritic. Oh, there's nothing. Oh, well, how bad could it be? I'll buy it.
Exactly.
Versus going to Metacritic and seeing 4 out of 10.
4 out of 10.
Well, not getting that. Yeah. That's kind of the thinking there.
Exactly.
Fortunately, we didn't have to do a lot of that at Nintendo.
We didn't, yeah. Right. Those games are always so good.
But at other companies, they do sometimes need to do weird jockeying for that sort of thing.
And then, later on, it was the review bombing that we had to deal with, which is a little bit different. But yeah, that's also something to contend with when you send a game out for review.
Yeah. Torcheeks is next. Hi, Kit and Krysta, with the 3DS/Wii U eShops closing out. Do you both feel you got all you wanted out of the systems? Utilized the unique features of each to their extent, had fulfilling gaming experiences with both, etc.? Obviously, you can still play them when the shops close, but do you have any fears you might miss out on something and won't realize you'll want to get it or play it until it's too late?
I definitely feel like I have.
Yeah.
I think I can say with some great certainty that I have gotten everything that I wanted out of these two systems. Definitely 3DS, too, because I played my 3DS for so long, and I just had it for, ever.
These systems were our lives.
It was my whole life.
We got every first-party game.
Yes.
No questions asked.
Yes.
We knew about so many good third-party games, heard from the grapevine about third-party games. I also feel quite confident that any experience that we would enjoy, we got to have.
We got to have it. We were also, so integral in some of those, system level experiences too. We were there when we were moderating the Wara Plaza. Yeah. We were there when Flipnote went flaming into the depths of hell. Yeah. I was one of the characters that drew in the swamp note. There was messages from me and Nikki in the swamp.
That's right.
I was part of that.
I was getting worried. Again, I was getting worried for a second there. What did you do?
I didn't do anything. I was an innocent bystander when that went to the flaming hell. But like, yeah, we were there when the eShop launched.
Yeah.
We were there for all of it.
Right.
So I feel like, yeah.
Yeah, probably more so than we ever will for another system. Like, we were so embedded in those.
I know. Yeah, so true.
But yeah, I understand the anxiety that people have now of like, oh, it's my last chance to
it's all coming to an end,
find a hidden gem or get something I might want in the future. That stinks.
Coming to an end.
Yes. Uncharted 95 is next. Hi, Kit and Krysta. Is there a reason why Nintendo doesn't follow the same naming scheme with all of its consoles? The PlayStation hasn't changed its name with the exception of the number, and Microsoft still calls its consoles Xbox, but Nintendo hasn't really kept the same name for its consoles with the exception of the NES/SNES and Wii/Wii U. Why is that?
They like to be zany. Well, I do think, beyond the fact that they like to be zany, They want the name, they're really like fixated on the name of the system really embodying what the system is. I think PlayStation and Xbox are a lot less concerned with that because their system upgrades are more so like, this is the same thing but with a bit more power.
Conceptually, like the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 5, it's like, yes, the technology is better.
Yeah, but it's
the
kind
same
of like
idea.
You kind of know what you're getting.
Even the controller is like shockingly similar from generation to generation.
And even Xbox, right?
Yes.
Xbox,
both of
Xbox
them.
360,
Right.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, the concept of it is like, it just has a more powerful, powerful guts. But the general, form factor concept. But Nintendo systems are not like that. You got like Wii U, and then you went to Switch. So you need to have like some way to describe it to people. And sometimes they do a really bad job of naming it like the Wii U, and everyone gets confused for 3, 4, 5 years, and then sometimes you hit it out of the park like Switch, and everyone just gets it right away. So, Super Switch U DX
new
coming up. 2024.
Our last question is from VGMlife, and I'm really excited to answer this one because we can debunk a common fan rumor
myth
or fan speculation. So here we go. Hi, Kit and Krysta. Do you have any idea what goes on at the Nintendo World Store when they close for private events? Have you ever been to a private event there? If you have no idea, what's the least likely activity you can think of that they close the store for? Thanks. And we have this image that was recently posted. Beginning 1 p.m. on March 1st, the second floor of Nintendo NYC will be closed to a private event. Well, they're showing the next Switch to all the uncles, nephews of Nintendo employees.
Exactly.
These are nothing to get excited about.
Yes.
These are very standard, by the numbers. Maybe media coming to see a game.
Creators.
Maybe creators. Maybe there's a celebrity in town who wanted to do some shopping.
Right. But they basically closed the second floor for some sort of marketing thing.
Right.
They're not going to be releasing or showing or having any sort of like, secret, unannounced thing at one of these events. It's going to be something that's been announced. My prediction or my thinking about this is that they're going to show Bayonetta, that new Bayonetta.
I think this already I think this was like actually a Mario Day.
A Mario Day? Oh, Mario Day.
Super boring and lame. So
okay, I thought it was going to be a Bayonetta.
Could have been that too, though.
Like preview event or something like that for creators.
Yeah, that was something they always would like tell us. It was like, this store exists for marketing.
Right.
Not to actually sell stuff.
Yeah.
So whenever we had something we needed to do.
We had to do it there.
It was like, hey, we're doing it here. And they're like, okay, we'll close the store.
Yeah, the other thing is like, we always wanted to do these fun events where we like rent a cool space that was like atmospherically aligned to the event. Like, we're like, whoa, what if we did a Metro event in like a space shuttle?
Yeah.
But they were like, no, do it at the Nintendo World Store. We're like,
and especially once we closed the New York office, it was even more so, it was like, hey, store, we're coming back.
Yeah, we were always in that basement. That dingy store basement.
Oh, I liked it.
It was a little stuffy.
It was fun. There. All right, fine.
Okay.
That's it. Is all the questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Should we shout out our wonderful superstars? We have some new ones
this week. These are our Patreon superstars. There's a new one. Yeah. Let's go.
All right. Here we go. Aaron Hash.
Ben Eichhorn.
MaruMayhem.
Eigenverse.
KissMyFlapjack.
Mike Chin.
Mr. Rogers.
Roy Eschke.
Switching it up. _
Sephazon.
TheSharkAmongMen.
vgmlife.
Link, the hero of wins.
Angela Bycroft. Enter Big Molly.
TurboChargeNerd.
Thomas O'Rourke.
Simon Barrera.
And our newest member, Kyle LeBoeuf.
One Up Club graduation ceremony.
If people don't know, One Up Club is one of our Patreon tiers as well.
Yes.
You can get shouted out.
You can.
As a One Up Club member or a
can.
superstar. You can.
You can.
It's possible.
It could be you.
Yes.
You could be Far
You could be next.
69.
Huh?
It could be you.
Oh.
You can give us any name and we'll say it.
And it's the first podcast of the month, which means there's some new members. So good luck to you.
Get ready
with some of these names.
Let me concentrate. Okay, here we go. Aaron Burgundy.
Adam and Ainsley.
Jean Malari.
Ale Alejandro.
Alexandra Pratt.
Astrodev.
Blazed and Enthused.
Bookham Dano.
Brad SF56.
Brookie Kazooie.
Bruce Dash.
Chancellor Fairley.
Chelly Squirrel.
Christopher Lay.
Cozy Tar.
Captain Cinnamon Buns.
Captain Alex.
C. Roper 17.
Daniel Cold.
Daniel Phillips.
Daniel Valencia.
Dachshund.
Desert Colt 18.
Doodoo Face.
Dolce Aguera?
Oh, all right.
Okay.
Dino Punch.
Elite Peach.
Spars 50.
Oh, I get it this week. Far Priest 69.
Nice. Fairbound.
Fernie and Jess Forever.
Fox Deploy and his dog Bernard.
Fred Rossi.
Garrett Hullfish.
Garth the Wolf.
Gartooth.
G-Sun 101.
Ian Shea.
Israel Izzy.
Jay Rando.
Jabroni Jones.
JK99.
JBJ.
Jeffrey Hernandez.
Jerry 92602.
Jesse Hernandez.
John Responte.
Jonathan Rowe.
Jordan Hemmerly.
Joseph DeHaze.
Joseph Quinn.
Joshua Clements.
Juji Fruit.
Julius Westenberg.
Just Camtro.
Kawa 2796.
Kelp Shake.
Kevin Delane.
Chris Yu.
Christorati Kid.
Christopia Party With Me.
Kyle Gamer Barry Rookie.
Kyle Kretzer.
Kyler Nelson.
Linnell Stickman.
Lego My Froggo.
Lena.
Lil Sebastian.
Lit.
Mad Dog 5981.
Marky Man 64.
Mecha Dragon 101.
Megan.
Michael Cravens.
Michael White.
Mikey.
Motomania.
Mr. Andy Pong.
MSN Poke Gamer.
Mr. Beans and Dip.
My Tran.
Nasir.
Nathan Burkhart.
Panda Buns.
Palgo Network.
Prime Factor.
Prince Charmless.
Reaver.
Raintech.
Ray Charon.
Ryuji Utsuha Okuu.
Renee Rivers.
Ryoth 1.
RJ Kern.
Rob Osborne.
Renana Rex.
Rocks.
Rianetta.
Sam Newland.
Sharif Jackson.
Shinryu.
Slowbro.
Schmiggles.
Shrews.
Silly Ferret.
Spicy Munchkin.
Steel Citrone.
Tales of Link.
Tefew.
Terra Storm.
Thomas Alvarez.
Topher Schmofer.
Travis Storeline.
Troopage.
Tugs Puppy Bear.
Tuskoob.
Tyler Geis.
Video Game Stupid.
Virtual Bot.
Wicked Davy.
Will Ernst.
Will Johnson.
Zoodiverf.
Zelgaroth.
Zeroid.
I always like it when I can get the Jeffrey Hernandez, Jesse Hernandez combo. Not related.
Not related.
Not related.
Could be related.
But not.
Long
We've
lost.
confirmed. Not related.
Half a medallion.
Huh?
They each have half a medallion.
You should just
They were
stop.
given to them at birth when they were separated. And then
What?
they came together and realized in this Discord that they
Wow.
were long lost twins.
Interesting episode today.
It's all over, everybody.
Yes. Speaking of things that are over, this episode.
Literally, this episode is over. Okay. Don't forget to subscribe to our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Kit and Krysta. Help us keep this going.
Yeah.
Help us get to Japan. Can't do it without you.
Some other things you can do to help us out if you'd like. If you're watching on video, you can go ahead and subscribe.
Yes.
Give this video a thumbs up. Leave a comment. Those are all great. If you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star rating and a written review.
And the socials. Follow us. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. All of the socials. That's it.
We made it.
We did. All right. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.